So the Milwaukee Bucks got really good news about Damian Lillard's blood clot situation. Now they're saying that he should be back for basketball activities within 7 to 10 business days. The reason why this is a huge development is because we were expecting that Dame probably wasn't going to return this season, and we were talking about, well, should the Bucks move off Dame or Giannis? What does this roster look like? Can these two succeed in the playoffs? Because we haven't seen them healthy come playoff time. And Dame is only getting older in age, where he's 34 years old. Giannis just crossed into his 30s. So you wonder, can they get healthy and can they reach their ceiling in the playoffs? So I think this is really good news in terms of getting those guys on the basketball court together and getting playoff experience. That's huge. And then you look at the situation between the Pistons and the Pacers. Obviously, I don't think they're going to catch Indiana for the fourth spot, but they're down in Detroit right now to not fall sixth in the Eastern Conference. I think that's huge because if you can reach that fifth spot, I think they can take out Indiana because the Pacers have no answer for Giannis Antetokounmpo. He'll destroy them day in and day out. Dame in the first round has been reliable. Obviously, he's made a Western Conference Finals appearance before. The hope is that those two guys play together. They show up and they make a playoff run, even if they push Boston or Cleveland to 6 or 7 games. That's going to build confidence going to next season. Because what I like about what the Bucks have done this year, they've gotten younger at certain positions. So I want to bring up a guy in Ryan Rollins, who, if you haven't watched him recently, he's been shooting well from the field. In the month of March, he shot 54.7% from the field, 46% from three. And, his numbers without Dame have been really good because obviously he's getting starting minutes and more playing time. And he's only 22 years old. I think that's a huge positive if you're looking at, you're trying to get younger on this roster. And you've done that by having a guy like Ryan Rollins on this team. And when you look at the rest of this roster, we talked about this before, Milwaukee has quietly gotten younger. The oldest guy now is Brook Lopez. And, we look at the wing position, Bobby Portis still 30 years old, but even that, Andre Jackson Jr., 23, AJ Green, 25. Ryan Rollins, we just talked about, 22 years old. Kuzma is 29. Gary Trent Jr. is 26. So there's some guys here who are still young enough. You've got some athleticism. Andre Jackson's been a solid defender. Defensively, the Bucks have been really good. I think their Achilles heel has been on offense. And in my opinion, a lot of that's coming down to Doc Rivers and the lack of innovation for their offense. If I'm going to this offseason, my top priorities for the Milwaukee Bucks, assuming they don't reach the NBA Finals or make the Eastern Conference Finals, whatever, I would look at guys like Brook Lopez, because if I can insert Giannis at center, or I can keep Giannis at power forward, but have a versatile center out there who can guard 1 through 5, who can make things tough on the offense, because Giannis is more of a post defender. He's not really good at guarding in space. That's not his strength. That's not a knock on Giannis. Just not part of his, strengths for his style of play. So I think the Bucks need to figure that out. Bobby Portis, can obviously shoot the ball, get you buckets, but not the best rim protector. So the Bucks got to figure that out first. And I think you have Kuzma, who can replace Bobby Portis somewhere. Obviously, his shooting isn't that great, but I think as a wing defender, a guy who can guard and take care of some things, keep him around. Ryan Rollins, Kevin Porter Jr., I think was a really good pickup, especially a guy who could just go out there and get you buckets. And he's only 24 years old. I thought that was it's a cheap deal and someone you can build alongside Dame and Giannis. And then AJ Green, he's been solid defensively, really good knockdown shooter. So there's some potential here. And then I would move off Pat Connaughton, because at this point, he's not going to fit well on this roster. You got to go younger here. So a couple of pieces I'm going to move off. Brook Lopez, I'm going to move up Bobby Portis, and Pat Connaughton, because I think what Milwaukee is trying to do is, extend this run for Damian Giannis. It hasn't worked out the first 2 seasons, but again, I'm not giving up on this roster yet. I'm just not going to give up on the potential of Damian Giannis, especially if I have him under contract for 2 or 3 more seasons. Now, obviously, the options are limited because they don't have any draft capital. You don't have any, flexibility to go out and sign somebody. So if I'm looking at the trade market, I'm looking at getting some draft capital for maybe Bobby Portis. Maybe you can bring in a player that can replace some of his production. If you can bring in another wing defender or another guy who can guard in space at that power forward and / small forward position, maybe go after, I don't know, a guy like Aaron Gordon. Ideally, that's who I would look at. So they got to look for that type of dude in the market who can, rim protect a little bit and guard in space. So what that does is, if you can find a guy who's younger than Brook Lopez, who can move his feet out in the perimeter, and because what happens is these offensive players, they get Brook Lopez in space, they get him out in the perimeter, and teams can go either drive by him or do drive and kick or get cutters in the paint and have easy buckets for those layups and dunks. So that's something I would look at from the Bucks. Do I like where they're at? I do. I know like the win-loss record is about the same as last year, which leads me to my next point. You got to fire Doc Rivers. He's not the answer for this team. I know people try to defend Doc all day long because, of his winning and getting teams to the playoffs. But when it comes to big time matchups and when you need to outcoach the other team, it doesn't happen for Doc Rivers. For me, Adrian Griffin had a better record. That's just a reality. I think they were 34-13 when they fired him, which was very odd to me. If I'm going to the offseason, I'm looking at a guy like maybe Eric Spoelstra, assuming he's unhappy with the Heat's direction. Somebody's just going to be better than Doc. And then you go from there. So again, I like where they're heading. Hopefully Dame can be healthy for the playoffs so you can get a run between Giannis and Dame. And then you go into this offseason and, upgrade the roster some more. Tinker around with it because I don't think the Bucks are that far away. If you got your backup point guard figured out, Ryan Rollins, you got AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., Pat Connaughton, Brooke Lopez, and Bobby Portis are other guys that are heading out probably. And then you build around, your Kevin Porter Jr.'s of the world, Gary Trent Jr., who's been solid, and you go from there. And Kuzma, of course. So you want to get younger just to extend Giannis as well, because I don't think Giannis wants to necessarily leave the Bucks. I know people are saying, well, he'd go to the Lakers eventually. But Giannis seems like a loyal dude who will ride it out and see if the Bucks can rebuild the roster if they have to move off Dame eventually. So what I would do is run it back one more year. See what you have this upcoming playoff run. Hopefully Dame and Giannis stay healthy enough where you can look at the roster, okay, we've got our dynamic duo. How can we improve this roster so we can go out and make a deep playoff run next year? Because if you look at the Eastern Conference, I don't think they're that far off. I know Orlando, they've been disappointing this year. I expect them to be better. But you look at the situation in Boston, they're going to have to trade off, Drew Holiday or Porzingis at some point, and Al Horford is going to retire. So that front court is going to be barbecue chicken next year. Not to say Kornet can't hold his own, not to say Kata can't contribute, but there's going to be some struggles down there. And if you have Giannis out there in the East, he can stay healthy. You improve the roster this offseason. You're looking pretty good because then the only team you're going to deal with outside of Boston is Cleveland. And the Bucks, they haven't had as much success this season, but in the past they have. So I think they're not that far away. I'm not going to give up on this team yet. We shall see what happens. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Love to hear your thoughts about the Damian Lillard update and his potential return. And are you encouraged by that? What are your expectations for the Bucks going to the playoffs? And what should they do this offseason? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one.